44 years old, and from the time I can remember, I always wanted to make the world a little bit of a better place. When I was at my dad's knee, I was passionate about recycling. And in my teenage years, I was an exchange student, and I was convinced that global education was going to solve all the world's problems. In my 20s, I taught martial arts to at-risk students. And in my 30s, I wanted to change corporate culture from the inside to make it a kinder, gentler place to work. And then in my 40s, I said, the hell with it. And I created an underground railway to help corporate prisoners leave and start their own business. So I'm a little bit tired. And yet there are a lot of problems that are still left in the world. There's poverty, there's hunger, violence. One of the things that disturbs me the most for some reason is it seems like we're very unkind to each other. And yet I am not discouraged. And in great part because of a few people that I've met in these last couple years. The first is Amanda Wang. And Amanda is a graphic designer in New York City, and she's one of 16 million people with borderline personality disorder, BPD. Some of the conditions of BPD are that you have low self-esteem, you lose your sense of yourself, there's a tendency towards wanting to self-injure, and there's an exceptionally high suicide rate. And so Amanda, faced with a set of circumstances, did what probably all of us would do, and she decided she was going to train for the Golden Gloves. And in training for the Golden Gloves, she's going to make a documentary called The Fight Within Us to document her day-to-day challenge, emotionally and physically, of training for the Golden Gloves, and her day-to-day emotional and physical challenge of living with BPD. And she created an organization, Rethink BPD, where she gives talks and she shares her own very deeply personal stories with families that have members that have BPD, people who have lost their family members to suicide, as a means of encouraging them to seek treatment and to be more positive. What Amanda has really taught me is that place that we have inside that feels like it's the source of the deepest pain, that feels the most broken, those parts of ourselves that we're ashamed or embarrassed about, are often our greatest source of power. Heading west a little bit in Atlanta, Georgia, is Willie Jackson. And Willie graduated from Florida State University, an employer's dream. He's intelligent, he's personable, he's creative, he's hardworking. And with that kind of pedigree coming out of college, he did what a lot of people were telling him to do, which is to take a job in a large corporation, a consulting firm, and to spend the first couple years of his career traveling across the country working on large multinational projects. He bought a big house and he was living the dream. Until a couple of months ago, when he called up his dad in a self-proclaimed breakdown and said, I don't want to wake up and be 44 years old and have 3 failed marriages behind me and poor health and nothing to show but a bunch of toys that I really care nothing about. And so he quit. And he started doing full-time what was his side hustle, which was designing lightning-fast WordPress sites. And in doing so and watching the essence of Willie unleashed on the internets, I see a young man who is utilizing his talents to stimulate and start a whole number of small companies all across the US and encourage a lot of young people like himself that there's another path besides traditional corporate employment. What Willie has confirmed that I believe so strongly is that free minds are what are going to be creating our economic recovery. We need to stop telling our young people to spend 40 years of their time creating spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides that have no meaning. Right here in Arizona, close to home, we have Avery and Chi, who's also in our audience here with us. And Ave was born in Chinle in the Dene Nation, Navajo land, and grew up spending his time between the reservation with his grandparents and parents and relatives and here in Phoenix. And Ave was always drawing. He always was drawn to art. He enjoyed to create. And with the creative muse of Bob Dylan, it inspired him to really put a lot of his thoughts and creations down into artwork and paintings. And so he began to create art that was representative of the unique way that Ave interprets the traditional, contemporary, urban, artist, warrior way in modern society. And he has a very unique perspective about what life is. He spends a few months of the year traveling with other young Native artists, including my son Jeffrey, who's also here, going to different communities and working on community art projects where he talks with young people and moms and dads and elders and interprets their reality with them so they can create art pieces that really represent who they feel they are and who they want to be. And if you ask him, he will say that he is not a traditional spiritual man. What he says is that he really pays attention to what his grandma and his grandpa say, and he tries to live by those words. And because he chooses to live by those words, he is avoiding what right now is a modern-day silent genocide of addiction that's running all the way through our reservations, all across this nation and all across this world. And he chooses not to drink alcohol or to do drugs, which means, selfishly for me, that he's going to be here when my son Joshua is ready for his young man ceremony. And he will be able to chop wood and bring it for the ceremony, and he'll be able to raise his tobacco and share some words with my son about what it means to be a traditional, contemporary, urban, suburban, coyote warrior in today's society. And when my daughter, Angela Rose, has her kinata, her young woman's ceremony, he's going to be able to share with her some of the beauty of thousands of years of songs that are sung right from the center of the heart of grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads. He'll be able to be with her with the smell of 4 days of grinding corn in order to make an underground cake, which she'll share with her entire community, with the purpose of celebrating and reinforcing the divine essence of the female. What Ave has taught me, and it's the same thing that our other speakers, Nella, taught her, is that beauty is all around us, despite pain and challenge and suffering. It always has been, and it always will be. And the stories that we can learn from Amanda and from Willie and from Ave are being replicated everywhere around the world. These young people are everywhere. And we need to stop saying that the younger generation is broken. They don't need to be fixed. They are just fine. And what we need to do is we need to clear the way and let them do their thing. So, as a lifelong activist, I know that there is power and there is freedom and there is beauty inside the younger generation. It's all around us, it's inside of us, and it always has been, and it always will be. Thank you.